Hello, welcome back to Reeling It Appears, where we chat about and discuss all sorts of movies. My name is Gary O'Brien, and joining me today, once again, it's John Hackett, as we talk about the 2004 romantic sci-fi Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So stick around, we hope you enjoy. What is that? That's not the theme song.
I don't remember. I mean, I'm assuming you were changing each one to the different theme song of a Jim Carrey. Like, has he been in a musical before?
I don't think so, but I feel like I should know this.
It'd be weird if he hadn't been in one.
He's in
Jim Carrey musical. I mean, I guess The Grinch is kind of a musical.
That's true. He does some singing and songing in that.
Cupid and Pete from The Mask.
Oh yeah, I suppose The Mask, but that's not really a musical. He sings in it. If
it's
that's
more
the
of
criteria.
Yeah. How much singing do you have to do to start a musical?
That's a great point.
I suppose choreography has to be
how
an
much
aspect
singing
of the
on a podcast until it's called a song. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to John Carrey finding out the answer. Yes.
It's the chronological album. We're just going to be singing his movie titles as they go chronologically. I'll start. Mike Hammer, Murder Takes All.
So yeah, just to give some context. So John, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. As people who might have been listening to the last couple of ones, I have once again forced my friends to come on and do movies of an actor I love. So last year it was Pierce Brosnan for the Brosnan O'Brien Birthday Bros Bonanza, and this year I decided to pick Jim Carrey, and I didn't want to do it unless I thought of a fun name. So what I decided to come up with was a very long and complicated name, but also was the only way that these people came on and did it, because they heard the name, like John, and was just like, okay, yeah, no, you've thought it through. I'll come on and do it.
You've put enough effort in. I suppose I have
yes,
to.
Exactly.
And I suppose I have to has been a lot of these podcast inspirations for me.
Yeah.
I suppose I've got to do Catwoman eventually. I suppose I've got to do Daredevil.
We'll come back and do Catwoman. So imagine if this was it. Imagine like next year, I'm like, John, I'm only doing movies with cat women in it, and all the good ones are taken.
We need an overlap of any movie that Halle Berry and a cat have been in, and then we need any movie that Anne Hathaway and a cat have been in, and then we need Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Keaton, and that's all of them as far as I know. I don't know if there's any more cat women, but there's certainly
the Batman.
The what one?
The new one.
That's not Batman. That's Spooky Boy Robert Pattinson.
I do love the fear in your eyes where you were like, "Fuck, Gary's right," but I won't give him this.
Yeah, that's fair. Moving on.
Moving on. But I should say the name of the series of podcasts, which is the Unnecessary and Involuntary Legendary Visionary Jim Carrey Library Commentary, done by Gary and a very wary honorary adversary for my customary anniversary, i.e. my birthday. So I reached out to John, and he gave 3 suggestions. This movie we're talking about today, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. The other one being Mr. Popper's Penguins, and the third one being a thing I had never heard of. So what was that one again?
Mike Hammer, Murder Takes All. It's one of his early ones. I think it's from the 70s or 80s, maybe slightly before then. How old is Jim Carrey? Is 70s and 80s
not that
right
old
for Jim Carrey? No? Is he not like 60? Jim
he
Carrey
is, but I didn't think he was
age. Well, alright, this is now a Mike Hammer Murder Takes All podcast about just what that man did. Stacy Keach, who people listening will know from they know him from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where he's the grizzled older police officer who comes back and keeps talking about everyone being like a handbag or something, and how he drinks everything.
Right.
All his drink is brown. He just gets absolutely pissed.
Okay.
Linda Carter, who was Wonder Woman.
So this is the Mike Hammer. So
yes, this is Mike Hammer.
It was in Mike Hammer Murder Takes
It
All.
wasn't in the 60s. It was in the late 80s. So, yeah, Jim Carrey, not that old. I guess, the 60s, he would have been about 5 or 6.
He's a young talent, I'm telling you. You could tell. But thankfully, for both me and anyone listening to this, you didn't pick that movie. Or sorry, let me rephrase. I didn't allow you to pick that movie. And we decided to talk about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Why this one? Because I was slightly surprised in the sense. I love this movie, by the way. I'm nothing against you picking this, but as a weird wacky boy that you are, I was expecting something along the lines of Mr. Popper's Penguins. But you managed to pick one of the more sad or depressing Jim Carrey movies, which I have nothing against, but just Why?
It's
Why?
probably
You're
his
right,
saddest
John.
and most depressing Jim Carrey movie. Jim Carrey's most depressing Jim Carrey movie. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just really love the movie. I think it's one of the most interesting ones that he did ever, apart from
Hmm.
Mr. Popper's Penguins and
Yeah.
Murder Takes All. But overall, I just think it's a great movie, and I think that watching everything everywhere, all of the time, right in your face, hitting you in the mouth, that movie, that is
Special offer,
kind
only
of
available
similar in a
weekends.
sense. Yeah,
Hmm.
discount code Lycanthrope.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, it's a lovely movie, and I do like to always now and then just have one good movie to talk about. Because Daredevil and Ghost Rider are so fucking bad
I'm
that I
dying of the
need to
day.
have. Yeah, I'll Die Another Day. That was the good movie I was talking about.
Ah, yes, yes.
Oh, I love those
Both movies,
diamonds.
both movies heavily feature ice as well, so you're clearly on theme. I
I've
love,
got a
yeah,
theme.
I
Yeah.
love that you have the heating up of Ghost Rider or Daredevil in Hell's Kitchen, and the cooling down of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and Dine of the Day. Clearly, this was something you thought of, and not just me on
Yeah,
the
no,
spot
yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah. And if you could just hold the notes there higher, I just can't see what I meant to say now. No, yeah, I just really love the movie. I think it's really impressively made. Like the special
Yeah,
effects are really well done in terms of like the style of them rather than the kind of the actual substance. Because like every now and then it hits like a Beetlejuice style of special effects where something just looks a
yes,
little wrong.
yeah,
And it looks like it's got that kind of they've sped it up and they just did a bit of stop motion or
yeah.
whatever. Particularly the house at the very end. But I
Oh,
think
we'll
that
get
there
to
are
that.
there are moments in it where people are disappearing and it's just incredible.
Yeah,
And
especially
it's
for
just
2004, where
yeah.
like this movie, like looking back, you
Like
can tell this
Daredevil
movie
came
was shot
out
in
only a
2000.
year before then. Like,
But yeah, for a movie that came out in 2004, it does feel very much of the time, but like it doesn't really age that much. Both I guess in terms of the special effects, but also the story. Because like I
yes.
guess for anyone that doesn't know, the story is basically about what if it's basically a Black Mirror episode of what
Yeah.
if you could erase someone from your memory. So there's this doctor who's basically carrying out a procedure that people can, after a bad breakup, they can, remove someone from their memory so they don't have to like remember like missing a person or whatever. And in this movie, Jim Carrey undergoes that procedure to forget his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, played by Kate Winslet. And it's very hard to explain the story further than that because there is just many a twist and turn. So I guess what
Yes.
I might say to people is go watch it. I believe it's on Netflix. That's what I watched it on. But we will be probably
Yes,
talking
it is. Yeah.
majority of spoilers, but we'll try stay away from it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think you could talk through the movie, but like, there's kind of no point because it's just like a loose collection of, I suppose, almost like short stories about their relationship
Yeah.
that you piece together and turn into a larger one. And I think that like the movie does a really good thing anyway by the erasing starts from the end and works their way back.
Hmm.
So as the movie kind of progresses, you get to see kind of the start of their relationship and how they met and what it meant. And I think that that is one of the most interesting parts of the movie, where you start to realize that the movie has been lying to you.
Yeah.
For kind of a brief introduction about this, Jim Carrey, he starts off the movie and he's basically like he is the most depressed man I think I've ever heard. Like the way he talks about Valentine's Day, he describes it as a holiday that was invented by Hallmark to depress people. Not to like sell cards to make you happy, it's just to depress people. And
Yeah.
he's desperate to fall in love. And then he hops on a train. He just randomly decides to bunk off work, hop on a train, meets a woman called Clementine, who is Kate Winslet, and that is the most uncomfortable scene I think I've seen in a long time for just how like he is so uncomfortable. Like
As in
this is
like when she's trying to like talk to him and
she's
he's
trying to
like,
talk
no,
to him
not
and
today. Yeah.
yeah, and she is literally like she's at the top end of the carriage and he kind of looks over and sees her and you can just see the dread in his face every time that she like talks to him and then takes a step
Yeah.
towards him, sits down in front of him, starts talking to him, sits beside him 3 away and then sits right beside him, and you can just see the framing of him. He's so trapped and so uncomfortable. And it is
Yeah.
it's really well it's really well done in how he's kind of like like he's beside someone who wants to connect with him, but he just can't do it, and he just wants to be on his own. And it's a great start to the movie.
And what also I love about that scene, I read up on it afterwards, was so first of all I want to talk about the score as well, because that's a really interesting part of this movie as well. And I don't know if you looked into this person as well, but I've a funny point to add about it later on. But basically the director, Michael Gondry, wanted, I think the guy who did the score wanted to fill the silences of them not talking with the music, and Michael Gondry decided to do the opposite. He goes, no, have the music play when they're talking, like this upbeat music of like her really excited to talk to him, and it's like light, lively music, and then when he gives a short answer and there's the silence, then there's no music, so you just feel the awkwardness so much more. And like, and I don't think, if anyone hasn't watched this and they're still listening, I cannot describe to you how long this scene goes on for. Like, surely, like for most of it's like, surely Kate Winslet, take the hint, leave him alone.
But it's really like, what's incredible about it is that it doesn't take you too long to start buying into their relationship.
Yeah.
Like, he is so in his own shell, but at the same time, she is able to just persist in talking to him and persist in kind of trying to drag something out of him. Yeah. And I think we should start talking about spoilers now. And I really recommend if anyone's listening who hasn't watched, go watch it and then come back and watch it 5 times on 3 different devices.
Well, just two things. One, watch this movie, but if you guys haven't seen Mike Hammer's, whatever the name of that thing was, treat yourself. If you ever watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine and thought to yourself, that guy who likes to drink brown, what else has he done? Mike Hammer, 1989, Linda Carter, Jim Carrey, treat yourself.
Listen, we'll be back in 5 seconds because we're going to go off and watch it as well. What an incredible movie, am I right?
I completely forgot to watch it, John. I'm so sorry.
You son of a bitch. I'll kill you. I'll kill you and I'll push you off a boat like the climactic scene in Mike Hammer Murder Takes All. Fans of Mike Hammer Murder Takes All will be... Oh yeah, I've watched it.
Why?
I've watched every scene that Jim Carrey was in because I wanted to gauge how good a movie it was, and it's not good, but Jim Carrey is in it, and it's pretty fantastic in how bad it is.
It's
but
like
again,
the way,
as I said before,
it's like the way in the Deadpool where Jim Carrey is in it for the first 4 minutes, and of those 4 minutes he's in it for maybe a minute and a half, but that was enough to clarify it as that's a Jim Carrey movie for me.
Yeah. That's a Jim Carrey movie right there. I mean, how much of a song would turn a podcast into, or how much singing turns a podcast into a song? How much Jim Carrey turns? Well,
John, there's only one way to find out, and a 1 and a 2.
I wonder if we can get Jim Carrey to do a cameo actually for.
No, there's no way.
Like the final episode of this, maybe.
But I will say, I would be deeply upset if Jim Carrey does cameos and nobody has ever thought to buy me one. And I know it's probably like $2,000, but still.
But at the same time, it's kind of like it's a very good Christmas present, because like every time you do one of these events, we can just get you a cameo for Pierce Brosnan, then for Jim Carrey, and then for, of course, Mike Hammer.
Yes,
but anyway,
Stacy, whatever.
Coming back to, I have no idea how you're going to cut this all.
Oh, John, know the secrets of the 7 herbs and spices? I don't cut it. Anyway, so
no way.
Go watch Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So I guess where the story then eventually goes is that we watch these two people effectively become smitten with each other, and you're like, oh, how's their relationship going to go? And then the next chunk of the movie is basically Jim Carrey looking, it's like it appears to be a flash forward in time where Jim Carrey has then decided, you know what, I'm done with this whole relationship, I want to get my mind erased. And during this mind erasing scene, like John had said, we work backwards through their relationship as these doctors or whatever the fuck proceed to erase each scene. But the what's interesting about it is Jim Carrey is like conscious, so we're not just watching replaying like the replays of his memory. We're watching a replay of his memory, but with Jim Carrey, he's an
active agent in each of these.
Being able to like react to this, and it's like, hey, I remember this, but yes, the characters around him are still like somewhat still acting like they were in his memory.
It's a really good one as well because it starts off and it shows you like he walks to the office, he sees someone else going into that, having the memory done to them. And it's one of the most depressing things, that office of like just loads of people sitting around and they've got their precious items of like their dog, or I don't know, I can't remember who the other one was grieving for, but just so depressing, like such a bleak idea to imagine a room like that. But he then goes and he talks to the main doctor, and he sees kind of the equipment. And I don't know if you remember, Gary, but the equipment is actually like this chair that has like it's got like this kind of helmet. Imagine if you're at a hair salon, but it doesn't totally curve down, it's more flat. You're gonna have to put into the edit.
Can I take a picture of this at least to put up on the Instagram or something, just for people to like be able to
but yeah, so he essentially goes in, and he has a great moment of seeing himself in the chair, getting his memories erased. And one thing I really liked about this movie is that it kind of talks about it. Like, what's funny is that as you go back through his memories, you start to see the changes that he's gone through, and you see that he is actually slightly different after the breakup than he was kind of previously. And the big one is kind of they basically have to map out his memories to get like a neural kind of mapping of everything. To go from memory to memory and delete each one of them. And to do that, they have to show him individual items, and then he thinks about it, and he starts immediately talking about like what it meant to him. And they're like, oh no, actually, please don't talk. It's better if you just think about it. And then like 10 minutes later, there's a scene where his girlfriend Clementine is saying, you never share anything with me. And it's this great, like, it's a great little moment of where he's literally being punished for sharing, but he's still trying anyway. And this is after. And I think the movie works for me. I think it's a depressing movie, but I think it ends on a really uplifting note because he's grown, and because both characters have grown.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think I said something along the lines of that in my Letterboxd review, which I'm gonna plug now. Letterboxd, get on it and follow both me and John. I should try and think of a theme tune for plugging the Letterboxd. But Gary, if you can put that in right now. Also, if Mike Hammer has a theme song, if you could put it in here, Gary, that'd be great.
Oh hell yeah! And send that on to me. I'd love to have that as like a ringtone.
But so I'm Gary O'Brien, spelled a really funny way. It's in the podcast description. And then there's also John, which is John _.
It's Gary, but it's spelled JOHN _
It's
hack.
the worst way possible to
and
spell
then mine
my
is
name,
also that, but with an extra E.
Yes, yeah, very true. But yeah, follow John because he's very funny on Letterboxd. But I think my review for this was, let me have it here, which was tragically hopeful, painfully romantic, unforgettably sad, heartbreakingly inspiring. In that, yes, it is a very, very sad movie, but it is actually somewhat uplifting and inspiring, and it kind of, I guess, shows the what I see as the moral of this movie, which is, or like the point of this movie, which is you need the bad times to be able to appreciate the good times. In that, although what Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet perceived to be a negative experience, which was their relationship with each other, it actually made them better people, and therefore, something worth remembering, as heartbreaking as it is. So that's, I guess, the point of this movie.
It's got a point of kind of, it's trying to tell you that, like, I feel like they were almost being complacent by the end. Like, they're obviously, by the end of the relationship, there's a lot of insecurity. Like, he has totally fallen apart, and he's so insecure. He doesn't go out with her one night, and he's worried that she fucked another person, which kind of, it's a funny one because it kind of highlights, like, at the very end of the movie, well, not at the very end, but when they initially first met, he only goes there because he goes without his significant other, a woman called Naomi that we never meet.
Yeah.
And then the ending is the inverse of that, where he stays at home and his partner has gone out, and he's worried that, obviously this might have happened again. Maybe not to the same kind of level of emotional connection, but he's worried anyway. And you get to see how they have to kind of, as they start their new relationship, spoiler, at the end, they get back together and they are trying to essentially make it work again. I think it's the moral of the story is that you have to have a commitment to the other person, and you have to be ready to work on your own insecurities and try and figure out what the things about yourself are that you like and can share properly. And then what are the things that you need to actually figure out, and you can't dump your insecurities on another person. And it's just an incredibly, like, like the movie goes from being so bleak in the first half to so nice and hopeful in the second that like it's so depressing at the start, and then as you move forward you start to see all the nice memories. You see like them going out to Lake Charles or something.
Sure.
The first time, it's the first time chronologically, but it's the second time because when the movie starts they meet and then they go out to this lake for like their first kind of proper date, and then it shows the erasing memories, and that's actually what they did for their very first date, which kind of shows you that the very start of the movie is actually the end. It's not actually the start of the movie. And it's so nice. Like they have such a lovely moment and a genuine connection that as the movie then goes, he kind of starts taking action, and he stops like, I suppose, like existing within himself in a funny way, because he is in himself literally, and he's trying to just kind of break this cycle that's happening.
This whole like the erasing of his memories. He's trying to like, as they call it in the movie, to go off map, and that there's a computer program that's just basically going through the map that they were able to, architect by showing him all the items. Yes, chart out. And once he's conscious during it, he's able to think to himself, right, well, if I start thinking of memories that aren't on the map, they won't be able to find him. And that's he's able
that's great as well, because
I love that shit. I have a whole,
it has like
a whole thing just about how I love that. I'll go on a tangent slightly, which is Charlie Kaufman wrote this, and for anyone who doesn't know any of his work, he writes some of the most interesting scripts. And one of the ones I saw most recently was a movie called Adaptation, which I actually butchered the name of last week, but it is one of the best it's not a mindfuck of a movie. It's just like, I've never seen other scripts have that kind of similar story in it since then. And that Adaptation came out like in 2002. But this is the guy who did Being John Malkovich, where what if you could be John Malkovich for, 15 minutes or whatever it is. But then John Malkovich is also in the door. Every day I ask myself. But also he's done like, he's gone on to do other things as well. He did, like most recently, he did a movie called
Synecdoche. Synecdoche, New York.
Oh yeah, New York. I haven't actually seen that
or Synecdoche. Have you seen I really want you to play this for the edit, but there's a badly pronounced clip of Synecdoche, or however you're meant to say it, and it's just so funny.
I think you're doing it. I think you're doing it right now.
I think I am. I'm not sure how to say it myself.
Sinakina dodi chodi. Sai Ninakina dodi chodi. Sinacody dodi chodi.
But but I just think how he was able to write this not only this story, but how he was able to lay it out from plot point to plot point, but also like it's a movie that requires you to be able to look forwards while the movie is working backwards, but also being able to introduce different kind of curveballs and twists into something that you're only just getting your head around. You're working backwards in time, but then also Jim Carrey's character Joel is then jumping outside of what we think is happening, and then also this kind of external factors happening with these scientists. And then there's also the
factors are so good.
And then, like, I think one of my favorite things in it is what happens is, so Kate Winslet herself, her character undergoes this procedure, and that's what spurs on Jim Carrey's Joel to do the same, where it's very much like, oh, well, if you forget me, I forget you. But one of the scientists, I don't know what the fuck they are, I'm going to call them scientists, but one of the scientists who does this actually falls in love with her, and that's played by Elijah Wood. And he then holds on to all of these memories that she brought in to help like chart out her memory mind map or whatever the fuck you want to call it, and tries to like manufacture love with her. And it's just like those extra storylines in what is already such a convoluted story is just makes it such a thrilling watch, because there's very little time we get with the quote-unquote real Clementine, because the majority of the movie is spent with Joel's perception of her in his memories. So we don't really get much time with the real her. So the fact that he was able to find that way of being able to include her in the plot as it moved forwards, it's just a really well crafted, and he won an Oscar for it as well. So I think it was well deserved. But yeah, he's a really, 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 really cool scriptwriter, and this is just a prime example of that.
I think the the layers in this movie are what make it as good as it is. I mean, like, we can talk about the special effects, which really just have to be seen to be kind of appreciated, but the layers of this movie are just so well done, where you have essentially three different, potentially four different kind of main characters, not main characters, but four different overarching, overlapping plots that are all happening, which is Patrick, who is played by Elijah Wood, who has fallen in love with Clementine when she was doing her memory erase, and he stole all her memories of what Joel said to him, and he's using that to win her affection. Then you have Mary and the doctor. I can't remember his second name, Kerr Markowitz or something. But she has, she's kind of infatuated with this doctor, and then it's revealed at the end of the movie that she's actually had her mind erased because they had an affair, and the doctor, it's implied, I think, pressured her into having the mind erase, essentially to keep his marriage going. But they then kind of fall back into that same cycle where she has become infatuated with him, and again she makes a move on him. The wife decides to kind of check up on the husband because he's had to leave late at night, and that doesn't make sense until you realize that it wasn't the one time. This was clearly something that was happening many times before. And then you also have, I think this is a little bit tenuous, but there's a throwaway line where Mary asks her boyfriend in the movie, Mark Ruffalo, she asks, "Did you do my erasing?" Because they're going out, and she has to immediately think, "Did you take my stuff to kind of win my heart? Like, is this kind of, are you just bullshitting me as well?" It's incredible. Like, there's so many different aspects that you can appreciate that work so very, very well, and kind of hit this theme of two people trying to connect to each other, and the frailties and issues that you have in your own psyche to prevent you from connecting and prevent you from sharing properly with that person.
Yeah. And I think what's so interesting about this movie as well is because, I said up top where it's very like a Black Mirror episode, in the fact that I feel like a lot of Black Mirror episodes are like, how fucked up is this? Imagine if you could do this to your mind. Whereas this movie presents that sci-fi theme, or sci-fi kind of like storyline, but is able to inject it with so much emotion and heart. And like, yes, you can erase someone from your mind, but like, does that actually sever your connection with a person? When you meet again and stuff. So I think that's what like this movie does so well, and that like, this could have been just a straight up sci-fi movie of people, erasing memories and, trying to like uncover a big secret or a thriller. You know what I mean? Like, you obviously look at something that came out very similar around the time, which is Memento, where, it's very much a movie where you're trying to figure out the direction of time and what happened when and stuff. And this movie kind of does that.
It's a Christopher Nolan movie where you don't really know what's happening, and you just have to keep watching and be like, oh, for God's sake, where's my notebook? Sorry, great director. I love him. Great director. Tenet, what a movie.
What a movie. From what I heard, I was a big fan.
And from what you heard was not very much.
So that's what I think in terms of like, just like to be able to focus more on the romantic side of it, for something that could so easily, fall into the sci-fi. But also just on the effects as well, which I do want to point on, which was, they're not the most up-to-date effects, but because they're so distinctive, like, how would it look like if your mind was getting erased? I think these effects don't really have that weird glossy...
I really, really hoped you were going to talk about what would it look like if you were actually the size of a baby. Because there's a scene with Jim Carrey where they try and make him look like a baby. And, like, it kind of works in the most, like, budget Lord of the Rings scale thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to make him, like, you can clearly see that, like, he's much further away from her, or, like... It just doesn't work, and it's just so funny. But that's probably the only time where the effects are bad. In most of the other things, the effects are either good or great. Except for that one.
2004
scene,
as well.
funny.
Like, that is like.
Yeah.
For
I know the cookies were so big. How did they get the cookies so big? But I think that like there's an aspect of the movie that I really enjoyed, which is the very end. Which is essentially
when it was over. That was my favorite.
When it was done.
When it ended, yeah.
But it kind of it has like it's a funny movie because it kind of has two. It's got a couple of like, it's got two starts and it's got two endings in a sense.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah,
You know, the start of the movie is the end, and the end of the movie is the end, and then the start of the movie is the start. But there's a scene which is kind of the start of their relationship, which is where they meet at the beach, and it's just incredible how they connect, and they're kind of intrinsically drawn to each other.
Yeah.
But they essentially have this kind of like, they have a moment together where they stay and they, you know, go out late, and you know, they're at a bonfire, so it's the middle of the night. But they essentially sneak away and go to this house which is being kind of left because it's somebody's summer beach house. And it's a really heartfelt moment where essentially Clementine is saying that they broke in, she was trying to get him to come upstairs, and he eventually ran away. Because he just felt like he couldn't connect to her, and he was scared, and he had to run because he just didn't think he was meant to be there, essentially. And it's fantastic because there's obviously there's a moment where she's really heartfelt, or she's really kind of pleading with him, saying, "Oh, I wish you'd stayed," which is kind of himself saying that to himself, so it's hard to kind of like draw on that too much. But the very start of this movie has a similar thing where he is at her house, he goes up for a drink, he does leave, but then immediately calls her when he gets home, which I think is like a tiny moment of growth, where it's the same situation essentially, where he's being overwhelmed and he's being kind of essentially bullied by this woman to go where he doesn't necessarily think he should. But it's a moment where you can see his progression as like a bit more brave and a bit more suitable with her, that he does leave, but he still is ready to keep connecting when he goes home. At the very start of the movie, this is, because he just runs like a little bitch boy to the bonfire in the movie. He's such a loser, like.
But I just to go back to what you were saying there about like it is himself as Clementine nearly telling him what he may or may not want to hear. But I think one of the interesting parts of this movie is that it's almost as if he understands Clementine more as he goes through his memories, but because you're looking through them reversed, it's like, well, here's what she was like in this situation, and then you go like one memory back and you're like, oh, I understand you so much more in this situation because I then went on to see how you became, like, do you know what I mean? Like, he understands it. It's almost hilarious that at the end of the memory erasing system, that he forgets all that. But we don't know if he actually does, because like you say, they do kind of like rekindle, and they do end up looking like, well, like they do end up somewhat getting back together again. And like what happens at the end is obviously Kirsten Dunst, who's the one who plays the woman who was with the doctor, then proceeds to raid the office, take all the files, deliver them back to everyone who got their mind erased, and says like, look, here's all your memories, I don't think you deserve them back again, except for the poor person whose dog died. I think that was probably a bit insensitive. But then Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet get their envelopes, they listen to them back, and even though they hear all the horrible things they had to say about each other, they're still willing to give it another go because of their experience the day before on the beach, of when they met each other for the first time, but the first time they met each other.
Because that's a great scene of just having the, like, it's the most raw sharing you could do, is describing your partner in a very, very low moment. And I think it works incredibly well and incredibly awkwardly, because for this scene, Jim Carrey and why do I keep saying Jim Carrey? Joel and Clementine.
It's easier for your brain.
It is my poor little small brain. It's been brain damaged after all these memories got erased.
Oh, don't you worry. That's a bit later on. I want to come back to what memories would you erase. But anyway, go ahead. So basically, as they're rekindling almost their kind of a new connection and trying to like say, oh, will we give this a go? It's just him talking about her, and it's just so awkward. But I think it is kind of like, weirdly enough, I think it's a moment that they have to have, where he actually is open and honest, rather than kind of being so withdrawn and isolated from her. And I think for my last thing on the movie, I think it works. It's a really like obvious, and it's almost like a little bit corny, but throughout the movie, all of the memories getting erased have kind of faded to black. And the end of this movie is they're back on the beach, kind of, you imagine, where they first started, and it's fading to white. So it's got this like moment of they're making new memories. They're gonna get by, or even if they don't get by, they'll give it a go. They'll see if it works. Which I think, I think as a movie it works really well, because it has essentially an idea of like,
breaking out of a cycle that you've fallen into
Yeah.
and trying to form an actual human connection with someone, rather than a sort of idealized connection that you have with another person. Because I think, halfway through this movie, I was kind of like, this is feeling very kind of manic pixie dream girl kind of thing, where it's like the nerdy man trying to say, you'll save me. And I think it does a really good job of, like, halfway through, it keeps trying to refocus on her, the actual her, rather than the idealized her. And it's allowing her to kind of breathe.
Yeah, and this is one of
not that.
Yeah, and this was exactly this is a point I wanted to bring up, because again, I kind of had felt that it was going that direction. I had seen this before, but it had been a while, and I had a feeling I knew Kate Winslet's character had a bit of agency in it, but I couldn't really remember exactly. But I recently watched a great movie called 500 Days of Summer. I don't know if you've ever watched it. It's really good, just because of how much it, like, I guess subverts what you expect those type of movies to be like.
There's not 500 days in summer. That doesn't make sense.
I know. After the first couple of, you're like, surely there can't be 498 more. but
no fucking way. The sun just set. They're doing it.
But yeah, so I looked into it, and it's mentioned on the Wikipedia that apparently some people who commentated on the movie, some people who were like
critics
who were on the movie were talking about how this movie kind of referenced the whole manic pixie dream girl thing before the phrase was actually coined. Whereas she has a great line, and it was the line that was on the Wikipedia was the exact one where I was like, fuck, this is where actually, she's kind of breaking that down. What does she have? She goes, too many guys think I'm a concept, or I'm complete with them, or I'm just going to make them alive, but I'm just a fucked up girl who's looking for her own peace of mind. Don't assign me yours. And that line alone, it was just so great to be like, oh, she's not the answer to Joel being more exciting. She's her own fucking thing, and he's his own fucking thing. But, like, the two of them together might work, or they might not. But it's not like she is destined, or what you call it?
She's idealized in any way.
Yeah,
like,
or
the
like
end of the movie is.
Yeah.
Sorry,
she's not obligated to be with Joel because of all of his shit. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yeah. Because I think, it's kind of hard to say all this stuff and then not get to the conclusion that Joel is a little sissy boy, because it sounds like we're kind of mocking him, but the point of the movie is that the character, I almost said Elon Musk, Elijah Wood. I don't know why I almost said Elon Musk. Just for some reason it came into my mind.
A man who doesn't know how to form emotional connections with persons, so decides to try and steal / buy other people's memories to use.
Why would I
pass
think
off
of
as his
Elon
own?
Musk at all? That doesn't make sense. But yeah, it's got a great, like, essentially as Elijah Wood is trying to fake this, it just doesn't work. And, he gives her a present and she goes, oh, what is it? And he actually doesn't know what it is because it's something that Joel bought her. And he's like, oh, I don't know. And then she takes it out and goes, I actually love it. And it's the first time that she's gotten a gift from a boyfriend that she actually liked.
Yeah.
And it's small moments like that kind of show you that Joel and Clementine actually do work quite well together. Even though she is this sort of more bombastic and vivacious character, he is still quite suited for her, and they work together,
Yeah, and it's so funny that, like, he has presented Clementine with probably the most ideal and best gift that could be given to her, but yet she's still just like, cool, thanks. As in, like, because that connection's not there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I do want to actually, just speaking about their relationship, we have to talk about the performances of Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet, because they are incredible. And I think what makes them so incredible is because they are both playing against type so much. Jim Carrey, the same year this movie came out, did a series of unfortunate events where he is just playing four different What?
Who's in that? Is there a character in particular in that?
Oh, fuck off. Right.
Sorry if I spoiled it.
Week
Sorry,
3.
go again.
Week
Go
3.
again. Go
I'll
again.
give it a go. No, week 3. I'll give it a go. My name is Stefano. I'm an Italian man. No, I'm no closer to it. My name is Stefano. I'm an Italian man. Do you have a hall pass? I can't do it.
Like, if you close your eyes and listen to that, it's like I can hear someone, but it's so not Jim Carrey. It's
oh, John, you're so right. You're so right.
But yeah, the performance is really good because you kind of do believe that he is a genuine character. It's not just Jim Carrey doing a Jim Carrey.
But see, this is the thing about this movie. So Jim Carrey's playing this like subtle, nuanced, character of Joel, and he seems, like you said, so sad, like so depressed. And then I found in the IMDb trivia section where all knowledge is true and an absolute fact, where it said that when Jim Carrey first met Michael Godrey, the director, about starring in the film, he was suffering from a depressive episode. Over lunch, Godrey told Carrey, "You are so beautiful right now. You are so broken. Please don't get well." Recounting the story over a decade later, Jim Carrey would go on to remark, "That's how fucked up this business is." So it is quite upsetting that, knowing Jim Carrey was quite sad at the time, and the director was like, no, you're perfect. Keep doing it.
Use this.
This is the same
guy
who did the Green
Aragorn
Hornet.
kicking.
He's a fucked up bastard.
I honestly don't know which one was worse for mental health around the world. That statement to Jim Carrey or the Green fucking Hornet. But I think that it kind of reminds me of a quote that David Fincher had for himself. It's kind of like these directors are a bit mad, and I think there is I have a certain amount of tolerance for people in the creative arts who are like, this is the only way I know how to make art, and I can't deviate from it because that's just me. But he has
it's like the way you've always said, Vin Diesel making the same Fast and Furious movie all about family, and you're just like, I just respect the art, I respect the craft.
I go
up
to you, Gary, every now and then I go up to you and I go, "Gary, I think that last Fast and Furious movie was the best one yet. What do you think?" And then you go, "Well, in my opinion, I do." And then I go, "Ooh, it's so good."
Okay.
If anyone's seen that Justin Ling,
anyone who hasn't heard the Vin Diesel talking to his director about how good
his former
the director who has left the set. They were getting so off tangent, on such a tangent, but he makes a noise. But
Gary, we have to tie into the car chase at the end of this movie somehow. Vin Diesel is the connection.
Yeah. And he just makes such a brilliant noise. I'll try and put in the entire clip if I can. It has nothing to do with this movie. It's going to date horrendous. But if the next person I see who has listened to this podcast immediately doesn't go, "Ooh," to me, I'm going to know you're a fake fan.
Or Macho Man Randy Savage. Either way, great stuff.
What do you think, Justin?
Week 1. Just finished week 1.
How does it feel?
Feels like the beginning of an epic ending.
Is it fair to say that this will be the best one?
In my heart, yes.
David Lynch, you were going to say.
David Lynch. Sorry, he has a great quote about essentially saying that he didn't want to get better because he said he was so depressed some days that he couldn't get out of his house, couldn't get out of his bed, and someone asked him, would you like to be cured of this? Essentially, could you, if you could get better from this, would you do it? And he said no. And the fact was, he said, if I get better, then there's the potential that I would become less creative, and so it wouldn't. Yeah. And on one side, he's one of the successful people, so I have less sympathy for the man who's doing well. And as general advice, I think it's really fucking bad because again, it's like someone who's won the lottery and they're just coming out and going like, "Man, I don't know why it is. Just pick all ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those numbers come up." It's just terrible advice for the general majority of people. But for the kind of the auteurs in the industry, if there even is even if movies can genuinely be attributed to one person, for some of those people, they just adhere to that mentality of depression more than anyone. You don't really hear about many directors who are like, "Oh man, he's so sad. The movie's ruined. Fuck this guy. I just need him to be healthy and a good, healthy, mentally healthy boy."
Yeah, but at the same time, there is obviously directors that are they're obviously just like, "Hey, Joaquin Phoenix, love your Joker. If just stop being weird." I'd say anyone who does the Joker. The directors, I'd love for David Ayer to be like, "Hey, Jared, love your take. Stop sending dead people weird dead animals and condoms, just please."
Yeah, just listen. I love the idea. Damaged on the head, brilliant. That is inspired.
We get it.
Yeah, I got it. You're broken. That works. It works. And we all talked about it before, and there was a couple of sniggers. But now that you're out here, all gone.
Yeah. Sorry, can I
But-
do one more?
Yeah.
Hey, Jared Leto, it's me, the director of Dr. Mickey Morbius, the Dracula Man. Love what you're going with, where you're a man
No
who has a
comments.
serious no comments. Perfect. We will wheel
Keep
you
on
around
going.
as if you need a wheelchair because no comments.
Jim, I know what you're saying. You're depressed and you hate it. Jim, you're doing perfect. Keep going. This
Keep
Morbius
going.
movie is going to be... I mean, it is kind of funny that, like, if you imagine actors who come out with these statements and they're like, oh, I was just so broken and it just didn't work. And then you imagine them in bad movies, like Daniel Day-Lewis saying, like, oh, I committed to, the character. I was trying to walk around with the gait of the character and trying to really live the character. And I'm really excited for everyone to come see my movie, The Pacifier, releasing in theaters. It's like,
Yeah.
like all these statements, it's survivorship bias. You only hear the ones that are good,
Yeah.
apart from
Yeah.
anything Jared Leto does, which is just inherently hilarious, But yeah, I think that, like, there is anyway for this movie, which centers so much around kind of mental
this one.
turmoil.
Yeah.
It probably does there probably is an element of, like, take what you know that
Yeah.
this movie does really well. And I don't know about the other characters. Like, Elijah Wood seems to be always playing a little creepy child in all the movies that he's in. And I I he's taken from
like,
what he knows.
Like Lord of the Rings 2,
Lord of the Rings,
Lord of the
Come
Rings
See
3.
Come
See
Lord of the Rings 3. But he's a
Lord of the
creepy
Rings.
little boy.
Yeah, he is a creepy dude.
He's got
in
some
this.
very creepy little boy movies.
Yeah. But no, and just to go back to it, like, I will talk about Jim Carrey fucking all day if people would let me, but
Really?
they won't. But it's great. Like, I can understand why the director kind of was like that, because he's probably so used to seeing Jim Carrey on, which is just like in movies, he has never, like, when he has to be like ridiculous and zany, he's like that. And so for him to see Jim Carrey probably at one of his lowest moments, probably not lowest, but like definitely like a low moment in his life. Like, God knows that man has had low moments, and I will. The shit, like, he was homeless. Like, this man has been through so much. But to see him like that, you're like, oh, I need you like this. This is exactly how I need you for a movie. And not even kind of maybe trusting Jim Carrey to know how to act that. He's just like, oh, keep this. But he's a weird French director. French directors are weird, and I said it, and I will not take it back.
But it is. I mean, it's a huge call. Like, I don't know if he did many movies before this that were Truman Show, but I'm not even sure how early on before this it was. Let me just get up now. Truman Show, 1980. Yeah, Truman Show was 5 years before.
And that
Or
wasn't
6
really
years.
sad. That was like a hopeful kind of
No,
like.
but it was intense anyway.
Yeah,
Kind of showed off his
dramatic.
acting chops.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it kind of, I suppose, put him on the map for potentially more serious roles after, of course, his early work in a certain Mike Hammer movie, Murder Takes All. But no, it's a huge call. It worked really well.
Yeah.
I think the cast, like, I don't think anyone in this cast does a bad job.
No, it's a great cast.
It just works very well.
It's got like Kate Winslet nominated for an Oscar for this performance, by the way. Like, she was up against Hilary Swank for $1 Million Baby, and who I think probably should have got it, but Kate Winslet was excellent in this movie. Also you had Elijah Wood, we have Mark Ruffalo, Kirsten Dunst, Joe Wilkinson, I think his name is as well. All top-notch performance. Like, I think there's a few of those are Oscar winners at least. But I'm going to talk about Jim Carrey ever so slightly, because I'm going to keep bringing it back, where Jim Carrey notoriously has been snubbed for the...
Sorry,
snubbed for
just
the-
very quickly. Sorry,
Okay.
very, very quickly. You said Joe Wilkinson, which is the comedian, I'm pretty sure.
No, Joe
from-
Wilkinson? Joe...
Yeah,
what's his name?
I'm pretty sure that's the comedian from, 8 out of 10 cast does Countdown, which is a hilarious substitution, but it's a man called Tom Wilkinson.
Oh, it is! I'm so sorry. Yeah, it is.
Joe Wilkinson
Oh,
being
I'm
in
thinking
this
of Tom...
would
I'm
be
thinking of Tom
fucking
Wilkinson.
brilliant. Yeah.
Sorry, Tom Wilkinson. But yes, my big point, and this is my Gary's this is a Gary grievance, which is Jim Carrey has won 2 Golden Globes and has never been nominated for an Oscar. The Oscars, the Academy has something against Jim Carrey, and it angers me to this day, in that he has done work like The Truman Show, he has done work like Man on the Moon, and he has done this movie, to which he has received no Academy Award acclaim, which I think is goddamn horrific. And I think it's the reason why he was like, you know what, fuck you, I'll do whatever I want. I'll do Mr. Popper's Penguins because you're not going to like me anyway. And it's such a shame because I think really he could have gone on and been such an incredible actor. And he talks about it now these days where he goes, this, it meant nothing to me looking back at like what's an Academy Award versus like my happiness. But I just think he's such an incredible actor, and I've talked about it before on the podcast, and I really want people to watch it if they get a chance. It's a TV show called Kidding, and I think it is some of his best work. He is so good on it. It's so nuanced, and I think we would have got a Jim Carrey that was so much more like that had he received, you know, some acclaim or acceptance from the Hollywood elite or whatever the fuck. But look, don't get me wrong, we got some great movies from him after that. Looking at the list, not a lot, because he went on to do weird shit like he did like Dick and Jane, The Number 23, Horton Hears a Who, did Yes Man, I Love You Philip Morris, like all that sort of stuff. But I think we would have got more like stuff along the caliber of these types of movies, because obviously when you're an agent trying to sign talent, you know, you're obviously trying to sign talent who look like they're going to win Oscars so that the studio get more acclaim. And Jim Carrey was just a point where he wasn't getting awards, so therefore why would you cast him? So I just think it's a fucking shame. Anyway, that's the end of my Gary grievance.
I think it's fair, because when you look through what he did like after sort of 2004, which is kind of, I mean, his last great movie is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I'm trying to see.
Oh, choose your mind carefully, John. It's almost as if you haven't seen.
Sorry, Kick-Ass 2.
Dumb and Dumber 2 is not great. No, Kidding, I think is his best. Kidding, I think is his best work since this.
But that's a TV show, isn't it?
Absolute long shot. Yeah, but still, it's worth it. And also just speaking of great TV work after this, Kate Winslet's in Mayor of Easttown, which is absolutely incredible for anyone who gets a chance. Basically, get Now TV or HBO Max or wherever country you're listening to this in, which is probably Ireland, and go watch Kidding and Mayor of Easttown, because they're both great shows of these two people. Anyway, I'm getting so off track. I knew I would get angry about Jim Carrey at the Oscars. I didn't think it would be this much. But
it is. I mean, it really is interesting that like he essentially had a 10-year run of movies where he did The Mask in 1994 and he did Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind in 2004, and kind of nothing else notable, like in terms of before and after those points. There's not too much. Like he kind of, I mean, I'm not trying to say that he did poorly as an actor. He's incredibly successful.
No, but you have to think of it this way, like he's made a shit ton of cash. Like he can do whatever he wants, and if you kind of look at the movies he did, it was kind of like I'll do that. Why not?
He can't get nominated for an Academy Award, but anything else.
Yeah, and like you get to a point where you're just like, he's being typecast as Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and it's like you can kind of see why he wants to do stuff like, I don't know, Yes Man. I see that as a cash grab in the way that Bruce Almighty kind of was, which I don't know. I'm not going to speak for Jim Carrey, but like if I was, I'd get a cameo of him telling me I could speak for him. But no, and I think he's done some weird stuff. He's done stuff like True Crimes and The Bad Batch, which I haven't actually watched, but I've heard have been, they're received poorly. So look, he can do what he wants. He's doing the Sonic stuff at the moment, which I fucking love. And he's come out and said like, look, I'll probably retire because I'm happy I have enough. And look, once he's happy, I don't care. He's a man who's dealt with a lot in his life and a bit of dickhead at times and whatever. But look, when you get that level of fame,
like it's certainly an interesting kind of like, what if he got an Academy Award, would he chase more serious roles? I mean, what, after Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
I don't think necessarily he would chase more serious roles. I think he would just be considered.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, in terms of like this put him on the map, but this wasn't kind of a massive blockbuster movie.
No,
I think that there's some elements of his following movies that are good, but kind of the next big one is either A Series of Unfortunate Events or Yes Man, and those are. Yes Man was 4 years after. It's just too long for an actor to go dormant.
I think Yes Man was, if I recall, his most successful box office movie, maybe outside of Sonic.
Oh, really?
Or like for a couple of years, it definitely was.
Outside of Sonic?
What?
Quality. No, I just... Is that his actual most successful movie?
Let me check the Mind Palace, John.
Sorry, I thought that was either a fact or totally wrong.
It's in the Mind Palace here somewhere. I tell you that bleeding next to nothing. Oh, wait, is it over there? No, I took a wrong turn in the Mind Palace, so I did. I think I did. Yeah. No, sorry, I was wrong. Checked the wrong corner of the Mind Palace. It is Bruce Almighty. I think Yes Man is his biggest opening. I feel Because I'm definitely not
Okay,
making
yeah,
that up. There's
that's-
something about Yes Man. I think that's the biggest opening.
That's something
Let me check
I'm not
this
gonna,
quarter of the
I
Mind
can't
Palace.
check. Sonic the Hedgehog is pretty high up there, though. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, 288, his ninth most. Sonic the Hedgehog 1, 320-ish, his sixth most. Not too bad. The
I
mask
know this
pretty
is
high
now,
up
but
there.
this has now become a career retrospective on Jim Carrey
Yeah.
at the end. It's great. I love it.
But,
But yeah, anything else about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind that we haven't kind of covered off? That I guess one actually say as I answer my own question, which I fucking love to do. The score really interesting, really cool. Looked up the guy who did it, and it actually spurred me to watch the movie I watched directly after Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which is a movie that John had watched, which was Punch Drunk Love, which has a fantastic soundtrack. So when I realised it was the same person, I was like, oh, I'll go watch that. But it's the same guy who did Magnolia, Step Brothers, The Other Guys, and most famously, and people would know, John Mulaney, the Comeback Kid. So this guy knows how to score anything.
something vaguely fun. I got it.
Yeah, fun times. Get this guy, John Bryan is his name. Sorry, I answered my own question. John, I will actually ask you properly anything to any other bits about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind that we haven't covered off.
No, I don't think so. I think it's one of those movies that, yeah, it gets better as you get older. Like, I think that the more experience that you have with life in general, you take more from it. So I think that, like, I watched this ages ago, and I'm not sure if I enjoyed it quite as much as I did this time. I found it was way more impactful, because before it was kind of like an interesting view. But, 2004, I was, 10? Like, I probably watched it when I was 15.
Did you watch it then? Yeah, I was
Probably
about to say.
not. But, like,
What,
I probably
10-year
watched it when I was, like, 15 or so. And, at that point, it's
I
kind
like
of
the
like,
I like the
oh,
idea of
that's
us
sad.
both being 10, in the same cinema, and you're going to book your cinema ticket for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and I'm like, I'm off to watch Jim Carrey as Count Olaf and Stefano.
Taking a left or a right, and it's kind of like how our lives changed because of that choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's one of those movies that it's one of the greats because as you get older, there's more to take from it, and
Yeah.
you kind of understand where people are coming from a little bit better. And I think I think nowadays that's kind of my mark of what a good movie is. Maybe it'll change. Maybe I'll go back to 10-year-old John and I'll just like loud explosions and cool action men. But for now, that emotional kind of drive. Oh, so good. Oh, so good.
Hook it to my veins.
Oh.
Well, John, I think that's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and the end of the unnecessary and involuntary, legendary, visionary Jim Carrey library commentary done by Gary and a very wary honorary adversary for my anniversary. That might have been right. Who knows? So, John,
Just speed it up every time. Just throughout each one of these that you're doing, which you can't do
you
because
say
you've
that
already
as-
released them.
yeah.
But yeah,
yeah, exactly.
just go back in time. Just go back in time and do it again. Re-release. No one's gonna notice.
Maybe I'll erase my memory of me releasing them, and I'll re-record and release them all. But I'll
I
leave
suppose,
them
yeah.
in.
Like the only thing is that like there'd certainly be like some amount of like horrible trauma of being like I've lost like a year of my life. What
Yeah,
the fuck
like-
happened? Like
Yeah, like there's some bad shit in this movie where it's like his car gets damaged and he doesn't know why.
Yeah.
He's like, why is my car damaged? But he doesn't
Yeah,
because he's
yeah, yeah.
forgotten that because
She did it,
she did
essentially.
it. So there's like weird shit, like there's obviously loopholes and like plot holes. Sorry, in this stuff that like you don't want to look too far into.
Exactly.
But like
it's
again,
why
like,
I think
one
this
of the
movie
questions
is
I
trash
had to you
because
was,
it doesn't
like,
have
would you-
what Christopher Nolan does, which is it establishes something and then details what it does and how it works totally, so that there's no possible way you could any way interpret it any other way. And that's why Christopher Nolan is the greatest director of all time. I don't care about this man that you were talking about earlier, Charlie Kaufman. I spit on him.
Yeah.
I spit on his movies. I don't give a shit about John Malkovich or Synecdoche, New York. They're all trash. I want details, Gary. I want details.
It's funny you mention it because it's funny when this movie was being written. One of the Charlie Kaufman saw Memento come out and he was like, "Well, there goes my movie." And then the producer was like, "No, you wrote this. You're putting it out," and forced them to release it. So it is funny you mentioned Chris Nolan.
You just imagine then one of the other movies that Charlie Kaufman has been like, fuck! Another Jim Carrey, where he was like, Jim, I got this movie. It's like you and another person, and it's a relationship movie, but you're going in opposite directions, both figuratively and literally. And it's like, Tough break there, Charlie. There's a movie on the market. It's the
Okay.
greatest movie of all
How
time.
about
It's
this?
Tenet. It explains everything, Gary. It's got all the explanations you could ever
How
want.
about this?
It's hard to understand, but it's great.
It's 2010. What if you could go into the dreams of your girlfriend? But there's dreams within a dream.
You've got to go deeper to understand.
Charlie, I'm so sorry. I think that's been done. It's like, Nolan!
All right, Jim, I've got an idea. You're Catman. You like to fight crime because you're trying to win back your girlfriend. It's
But
your girlfriend.
also-
She needs you.
But also, you're very low down, so it's all about you rising up, okay? And then I'm gonna put a weird British man in a mask and you can't understand him. And he's gonna blow up a soccer field.
Somebody is there
Oh, Charlie, I'm so sorry.
Charlie, have you been stealing and reading certain scripts from other directors? No, that's not what I've done at all. Now you find that Christopher Nolan has an entire Being John Malkovich script that was stolen from him, and instead of explaining more about the movie, it has just such detailed explanations about how a half floor can exist, the building's structural foundations, and what would be needed to incorporate that into every single building in New York. Christopher Nolan, what a man.
I'm telling you, one of the great. I tell you, we don't have to be worried about fucking Godzilla versus Kong. The biggest fight of our century is Charlie Kaufman versus Chris Nolan. I'll tell you that much. Right, John, Mr. John Hackett again. Thank you so much for coming on. I very much appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. It's been absolutely class.
And again, it'd be great to have you back for Catwoman, so waiting for that. Anyone who's listened to this and any of the other podcasts, thank you so John's crying. Thank you very much. Oh, looks like John has stepped inside one of those brain erasing machines. Forget he ever knew me. But yeah, I want to thank anyone who's listened to this or any of the other ones. You can follow at Reading of the Peers on Instagram. You can follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. If you can give 5 stars on Spotify, that would be great. I don't know what it does, but just give it to me. I want it. Also, please get a Letterboxd. Follow us on Letterboxd. I'd love to know what you think about movies. And I think that's it. That is the end of our Jim Carrey month. So I very much hope you enjoyed. I know I did. So thank you again. We hope you enjoyed. Goodbye.